Welcome back to week 4 of the Scouting Report, where we basically take a look at college football this week and take a gander at some of those 2020 NFL prospects, see how they're doing. But before I get into that, I want to talk about, so I'm doing this 7-round NFL mock draft, right? And this is my goal. I'm shooting for around October 15th-ish in that area. I've gone over almost over 300 potential prospects in this draft, but it takes a lot of work. I got to do all the graphics, and just basically trying to rank these guys and take a look at team needs and projecting how NFL teams will finish, and then from there I gotta figure out the draft order, because boy, there's a lot of trades once you get deep in the draft. Like that 7th round has 14 trades, and it's like one team traded this pick, but then that team traded that pick that they traded for to this team, and there's a bunch of conditional stuff, conditional trade, draft picks, oh, this becomes a 3rd rounder if this guy is activated for 10 games. I'm just saying there's a lot that goes into it, so give me a little time to get all that together. I'm working on it. I'm working very hard on it, but hey, it's much appreciated, much obliged. Y'all been doing a great job at enjoying the content and being involved in the channel. I appreciate it a lot. But before we get into this, what's crack-a-lackin'? It's your boy Broshmo, just in case you did not know. So go ahead and give me a like if you enjoy the content, and become a bro and subscribe. It's much appreciated, much obliged. Leave all your opinions in the comments section. Don't be salty. Be cool, man. Be cool, dude. But before we get this underway, but Houston's quarterback, their starter, was starter, Derek King, he's actually going to redshirt the remainder of this season, and he's going to return next season. Now, I had him as a day 3 prospect, so him return is really no surprise after the Cougars started 1-3, but I saw him more as a gadgety type quarterback. He finished the season with 52.7 completion percentage, which ain't so hot, but he does have limited weapons there at Houston. He had 663 yards through the air, 6 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. He had 312 on the ground, and he had 6 touchdowns on the ground. So the guy's got a lot of talent, so I'm not surprised. It'll be very cool to see where he might fall in the 2021 draft, but we'll get to that way in the future. Now, as for the rest of the quarterback class, I believe now that there is a top 3. There is a big 3 at quarterback. We got Tua, we got Herbert, and I ain't talking about Fromm, man. I'm talking about Burrow. LSU's Joe Burrow has been a monster. Honestly, the only thing keeping him from stinking Justin Herbert, because he's on Herbert's heels. I'm telling you, he's on Herbert's heels. The only thing keeping Herbert in that 2 position as far as quarterback ranking is he's got ridiculous arm talent. That's honestly the only thing keeping him in the 1st round discussion. Now, Burrow has dominated every game this season. Just this week against Vandy, he went 25-34, 398 yards with 6 touchdowns, no interceptions, and 4 out of 7 for 90 yards and 2 touchdowns on throws of 20+ yards. The guy can throw the ball downfield. He's insane. He makes up that big 3. I think Burrow is a top 10 prospect at this point. Now, I may have took a little jab at Fromm. I still think Fromm is a 1st round quarterback. I mean, this guy, he was very stellar against Notre Dame. Fromm basically dissected that Notre Dame secondary, who has a trio of draft eligible players. He was incredibly accurate, and it's safe to say he should be a mid to late 1st round pick. Couple of guys hurt their stock this week, and we're going to start with Michigan's Shea Patterson. I mean, he was supposed to excel in Josh Gaddis's offense, was supposed to be more up-tempo, and he has a bevy of talent at receiver, and he's got a good offensive line, but he has struggled. He hasn't looked good. I mean, this all culminated this week against Wisconsin, where he was benched, and the only reason he re-entered the game was because McCaffrey got hurt. Then there's KJ Costello. He's just looked bad in consecutive weeks, and I mean, he has everything you want from a quarterback prospect. but the decision making has just been poor. He's I believe he's very confident in his arm strength to the point where he's been forcing passes into tight coverage. Now, we saw that last season, but more times than not, he was able to complete those passes. But this year, they're really going against him. I mean, these games against Central Florida and Oregon have really exposed him. He had an interception against Oregon. He was 16-30. He just looked bad. Utah's running back Zach Moss had to leave the USC game early because of a shoulder injury. His status, they refused to reveal it for the Washington State game, but I mean, the guy, it's definitely something to monitor. The guy has been a stud all year. He's currently my third-ranked running back in the 2020 draft. So, again, like I said, something to monitor, but Wisconsin's Jonathan Taylor and Mississippi State's Kylan Hill, they both continue to look really good, especially Taylor, who... Okay, I had questions with Taylor at the beginning of the season about his ability to be a threat in the passing game, basically to be a receiver and be a blocker. Can he do that? And Wisconsin, they let him do that, and he's looked pretty darn good. And I mean, well, crap, dude. All right, Taylor. All right, I'm gonna quit knocking you on that. My bad, but these are currently my running back rankings for the 2020 draft. DeAndre Swift and Travis Etienne continue to be the top of my list, with Zach Moss, who I mentioned earlier, at number 3. Jonathan Taylor and Kylan Hill make up 4 and 5, and then Eno Benjamin falling 2-6 on my rankings. He's been pretty good in the pass game, but he just hasn't been able to get started on the ground. Najee Harris has been a monster, especially through the air. I mean, that game last week, just go back to my video and you just watch that catch he had. More so the run after the catch. It was just disgusting. Keyshawn Vaughn, he continues to be a broken tackle machine, but playing for Vanderbilt, he doesn't really have the line to really do anything with it. But he is looking good. Reggie Corbin makes it onto this list, and Cam Akers playing for that terrible Florida State team. And we're going to go to the Pac-12 for receiver, because these two guys, they had a banger of a day. Pittman had 10 receptions for 232 yards and a touchdown, basically just torched that Utah secondary. And then Winston Jr. had 10 receptions for 114 yards, but he piled 4 touchdowns in that loss to UCLA. Both should firmly be day 3 picks at this point, and their stock should continue to rise. But the next guy I want to talk about, we got to travel all the way to the east side. We're going to Virginia. We're going to Liberty specifically. Antonio Gandy-Golden is currently my 9th ranked receiver in this class, and he deserves some more hype. He is currently a 2nd round prospect, and he's just been on a tear for the Flames. He's got great size, good speed, and I expect him to be a 2nd rounder. I was high on Alabama's Alex Leatherwood's versatility before the season started, but he has been a beast at left tackle for the Tide, and he's now in 1st round consideration. He only allowed a single pressure this Saturday, and you could basically throw Texas's Samuel Cosme in that same boat, allowing a single pressure on 36 pass blocking snaps. He too should be a 1st round consideration. While Wisconsin's Tyler Badaz, I mean, after a rough few weeks to start the year, he put up a very strong performance against Michigan. And his teammate actually at tackle, Cole Van Lanen, he looked really good in that matchup, allowing 0 pressures. And on to defense, and Chase Young is without a doubt my number 1 overall prospect. He has a 37% pass rush win rate, which is just ridiculous. Both his sacks this week were strip sacks, and it'll be hard pressed for anyone to unseat him as the top prospect. And I talked about Florida's Jonathan Greenard after that game where he just dismantled Miami's offensive line, and I think he's overtaken Jabari Zuniga, who's been out for the past few weeks. Now, he had a sack this week against Tennessee, and Tennessee's line, on a side note, it just looked bad in that game. They looked pretty bad all year, and Trey Smith, he's been very hyped up, right? Tennessee's Trey Smith has been a very hyped up prospect, and he's really only been average this year. I have him translated as a guard, and he's currently my 12th ranked interior offensive line prospect. But back to Greenard, who has been just money this year, winning 33% of his pass rushing snaps, and he has 16 total pressures on the year. Charlotte's Alex Highsmith has also started to make a name for himself. The guy has been on a tear. He's been a monster. And he played very well against a very tough Clemson team. He's just been phenomenal all year. He has 21 total pressures with 5 sacks. This is a guy that probably won't see his stock actually skyrocket until the Senior Bowl. but he's got great size and he's a name to watch out for. Northwestern's Patty Fisher's been a tackling machine, but I've made a note of my concerns about him as an athlete and basically to be a threat in pass coverage. But he's been pretty darn good at that, especially this week against Michigan State despite the loss. I mean, he put on a clinic and he should be a day 2 prospect. And on to secondary, and no corner this year has been as impressive as Ohio State's Jeffrey Okudah. He's been shut down and most times not even thrown at. I mean, just this week he had a pick and a pass breakup, and I'm very eager for conference play to start, but right now no one is looking as good as Okudah. Now, a guy that was on my overrated list was Alabama's Trayvon Diggs, and that was merely because we hadn't seen enough play from him. He only played 6 games in 2018, but he's been very good this season. He's shown great athleticism and great technique, same stuff we saw last season, and I think he'll be a very good press man corner in the NFL, and that's what we basically saw this week when he took on the speedsters at Southern Miss. Now, we all know Florida's CJ Henderson is probably a potential first-round pick coming out of that secondary, but another guy to watch out for is Marco Wilson, because this guy could be a day 2 pick. He was only targeted 5 times against Tennessee, allowed 0 catches, and that was against Marquez Callaway, who is a potential draftee himself. And dude had a pass breakup and an interception. He looked stellar, but let's talk about the bad. And we go back to that Utah defense. I talked about it earlier, specifically Utah secondary. Oh man, Jalen Johnson, he had a rough outing. Now, I thought he had a potential to be the top zone corner in this draft, but he has that real risk versus reward type of playing style, and we really saw the risk of it against USC. I mean, the guy was beat on multiple plays. He gave up a touchdown. I mean, even Utah safety Julian Blackman, who was rising really high up the ranks for safeties, he had a rough outing as well. I mean, we could chalk this up to just another rough day at the office, but we'll see, because they have a few pretty decent passing offenses still to face on the schedule in Washington State, Oregon State, and Colorado, so we shall see. That's it for the video. Go ahead, do the YouTube stuff. Thumbs up. Much appreciated. Hopefully you're psyched up about that mock draft like I am. Put in a lot of work, so let's go, baby. But till next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.